crank it up, let it roll. Stars and stripes in my soul. Steel toes on, boots in the gravel. Heartland truth on every channel. Open Bible, flag on the wall. We say what we believe or we don't talk at all. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. We back the bad, we guard the border. We love our guns and law and order. They try to shame every word we say, but we don't bow down, we just press play. This is red, white, and raise hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rebel from the back road to the bell. Hey, we won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raise hell. You can cancel the show, but not the crowd. We're still here, still talking loud. Hand of the free on every spell. Hit that mic, host, let the truth ring out. This is red, white, and raised hell. Cowboy hat, church bell. Can't scare us into silence. We were born to rail from the back road to the beltway. We won't fade, we won't fail. Proud, loud, standing tall. Red, white, and raised hell.
Take a look at that screen, everybody. Oh, where is it? Come on, it was supposed to be there. That's the one. Yeah. That's pretty much what he's going to look like. Very, very, very soon. In fact, he's not in a prison cell yet, but he is now for the first time since he murdered Austin Metcalf. He's in police custody. He's in jail. He's been under house arrest for the last year and a half, ever since he killed Austin Metcalf. Because why? Because of a radical judge that doesn't want to hold people accountable. That's why. But there he is. Yesterday, the decision was made. The jury did not mess around in terms of time. They did not mess around whatsoever on the Karmelo Anthony verdict. They got the verdict in less than 3 hours, and then they went ahead and said, okay, now let's do the penalty phase, and we'll do the sentencing. And they got the sentencing back last night as well in very short order. Lot to discuss there with respect to the Karmelo Anthony trial and verdict yesterday. Justice for Austin Metcalf was done insofar as guilt, probably not so much insofar as the sentence goes. Quiet, you already stopped you. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I went ahead last night and got John R. Lott up and connected, and we recorded a conversation last night that I'm going to play with you in about 23 minutes or so at the bottom of this hour, because Dr. Lott is a crime researcher, and Dr. Lott is in a position to refute so many things that are being said about this trial and about this case and about what it says about race in America, the criminal justice system in America, and so forth. And Dr. Lott's out west, so it's hard to get him up to do a 7:30 interview because it's 4:30 in the morning there. So we went ahead and pre-recorded last night with Dr. Lott, and I'm going to give that to you as if it were live here in about, like I said, about 23 minutes. So that was a huge deal yesterday here inside our homeland. Some justice in Texas for Austin Metcalf. How much, like I said, is a matter of opinion. But that's not the only story. Also yesterday, if you think that there's a ceasefire in Iran, and if you think that President Trump is just fully in control of the situation, I need you to explain it to me, because I don't think that. He has been saying we are days away from a deal for 2 months. Just days away, just days away, just days away. We're a couple of days away. They're back to the table. Let's go. And now we have pretty much started full-scale attacks. Not full-scale. They are supposedly, they're being called, retaliatory strikes that are proportional in nature to what the Iranians did in shooting down one of our Apaches. And two of our best floating in the water for, they said, roughly 2 hours before they were rescued by a drone boat. Good news for us. We, again, rescued those of ours who went down, just like when they shot down one of our planes and then went on a full-scale manhunt to try to capture a couple of Americans to use them as leverage and propaganda. So we got them before they did, and that's an amazing accomplishment. But bottom line is, they're denying shooting down the Apache. We're saying, yes, they did, and we're responding accordingly, and they're responding back. We're firing missiles into Iran or dropping bombs on Iran, and they're firing at some of our bases in some of the neighboring Arab states. So that doesn't sound like a ceasefire, and it does not sound like we are close to a deal. President Trump, in my opinion, needs to just say, that's it, we're done. The negotiations for now are closed. Here we come. Not with boots on the ground, but here we come with a bigger and more furious, epic fury than we ever did at the beginning of this thing back in February. This time it's got to be for keeps. This kind of time it's got to be for real. This time it's got to be on a level that they will have no choice but to wave the white flag and say, okay, deal. Now let us stay in power. It is a very, very, very precarious situation, and it is not going to end anytime soon. And if we thought it was going to end before the midterm elections can be too dramatically impacted by this, I think that is a pipe dream now. President Trump needs to commit to it. Trying to walk this line between we're tough, here's some retaliatory strikes, to let's talk about how we can end this thing with you not having nuclear dust, nor anything else, nor funding terror proxies, and the full Strait of Hormuz opening. It's not going to happen that way. And I just want President Trump just to be real with us and say, yeah, it's on again. Here we come. Brace yourselves, Iran. Here we come. Remember those power plants we talked about? Remember those bridges? Bye-bye. They only understand one thing, the Iranians do, and that's force. And this limited force that's being deployed right now is it's a start. It's not nearly enough. Fury means to be furious. Epic fury is not epic right now. And there's no negotiation at the table either. So just had to get that part out of there. Iran's, by the way, response to the proportional strikes that we did make yesterday were, quote, soon a heavy response will be given to the enemy's hostile actions. That's not a ceasefire. If there was a ceasefire, it's over. I don't think there was one really pretty much at all. So we need to get that part out of there. Other huge news yesterday from Capitol Hill. Jim Jordan, Congressman Jordan, who is scheduled to join us. Let me rephrase that. We're hoping to have him scheduled for Friday, talking to his scheduling team about either tomorrow or Friday. Tomorrow looks like a long shot. Friday looks like more likely that we'll get him on. But Congressman Jordan yesterday in his Judiciary Committee took the SPLC. That's why I was kind of flashing this up here during the pre-show, just to remind everybody what we're dealing with here. The Southern Poverty Law Center, a.k.a. socialist pushing leftist crap. Jim Jordan and his colleagues, his Republican colleagues, yesterday just took the SPLC to the proverbial woodshed. What they did was they called, what's his name, Bob Fair? Is it Bob Fair? Yeah, they called him out on virtually all, Brian Fair, not Bob. They called him out on virtually all of the SPLC's unbelievable hypocrisy, claiming to be seeking donations to stop extremist violent groups from committing violent acts. That's a noble cause, by the way, if you're willing to recognize what an extremist group is. They were not. What they did do is use their donor funds to hire people to do extreme things in the name of being able to fight back against those extreme things. They funded the KKK in the burning of crosses. They funded a lot of KKK operations and other actual hate groups while behind the scenes working to tie non-hate groups in as hate groups, including pro-life organizations. Do the radical Islamic extremists who supported, danced, and laughed and loved 9/11 and who condemn the state of Israel while praising terror acts committed against the state of Israel, such as by Hamas and Hezbollah and so forth, are any of those Islamic groups a part of the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate maps? Well, that's what they were intending to find out yesterday. So I want to share a little bit of this with you, because this is kind of important. This is a little bit of Congressman Jim Jordan, who is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee yesterday, making Brian Fair of the Southern Poverty Law Center sweat, to say the very least. You can watch him and watch his lip quivering as Jim Jordan goes in on him. But this is a really, really important piece. I saw a couple of folks in the pre-show chat mentioning the SPLC yesterday. So it's one of the reasons I'm glad we're kind of simpatico. I want to get this in now before we go on to the Karmelo Anthony verdict yesterday. But watch Jim Jordan make Brian Fair of the SPLC sit there and literally lip quiver, unable to answer some very direct and important questions. Let's watch.
Mr. Fair, did the Southern Poverty Law Center use donor money to have field sources attend extremist rallies across the country?
Mr. Chairman,
It's a simple question. Did you use your donor money for that purpose?
we used donor money
So yes or
to
no?
pay confidential informants to infiltrate extremist organizations.
Did the Southern Poverty Law Center use donor dollars to have field sources host extremist rallies throughout the country?
Not to my knowledge.
That's not what the indictment says. Did the Southern Poverty Law Center use donor dollars to have field sources grow existing chapters of extremist groups?
Mr. Chairman, as I
It's
said
a simple
earlier,
question, Mr. Fair. Did you use donor money for the purpose I just read? I'm reading straight from the superseding indictment.
and Mr. Chairman, the indictment will be managed and responded to by counsel in the criminal case that's
Well, you just
pending.
answered a question from Mr. Raskin concerning the indictment. He asked you, did field sources send information to the FBI that help with things? You answered that question.
That's
asking
a matter of public knowledge.
That's in our
Mr. Chairman.
public filing.
Did the
Mr.
Southern Poverty
Chairman.
Law Center use donor money to have field sources create new chapters of extremist groups?
Again, Mr. Chairman,
Did the Southern Poverty Law Center use donor money to recruit new individuals into those extremist groups?
I assume you don't want me to answer since you're not giving me time to answer.
No, I'm giving you time to answer because that's a yes or. Did you use your donors' money for that purpose? Yes or no?
Again, those issues will be resolved in the pending allegations against the SPLC.
It seems to me if the answer is no, you could say no.
We have asserted that the allegations are false.
Did the Southern Poverty Law Center use donor money to have field sources make donations to extremist group leaders and purchase materials for cross burnings? It's alleged in the indictment. Did it happen?
We've alleged that those allegations are false.
Did Southern Poverty Law Center use donor dollars?
What does that mean? We have alleged that the allegations against us are false. How about just say, no, that didn't happen? He can't say that. You want to know why? You want to know why he's sweating? You want to know why he's lip quivering under this pressure from Jordan? Because perjury. That's why. Testifying under oath falsely is perjury, and it's grounds for imprisonment. I'm not kidding, and Brian Fair from the Southern Poverty Law Center, aka Socialist Pushing Leftist Crap, knows it, and that's why he said we, as an organization, have alleged that the allegations are false. We allege that your group did this. Well, we allege that that's false. No, you just say you either did it or you didn't do it. He can't say we didn't do it, because then once it's exposed and proven that he did, he's on the hook for perjury. That's why he's dancing. That's why he's sitting there sweating under the pressure.
To have field sources create racist paraphernalia that extremist groups sold at rallies?
we've alleged that those allegations are false.
Okay, how about this?
There it is again. I mean, it's one of the most bizarre phrasings I think that I've ever heard in a case like this. Now, let me move forward to questioning from, this is Chip Roy questioning Brian Fair from the SPLC as well. This is every bit as embarrassing for him as what Jim Jordan was just doing to him.
How many extremist Islamic groups do you have of the 1,500 or so organizations you have on your hate map?
Again, anyone can go to our website.
My office has been looking over it and we can't really find one.
Again, it is the SPLC's.
You think
right.
SPLC could provide us a list of the Islamic-oriented groups that you have on your hate map?
Mr. Roy, we don't target any group because of its religion.
Really?
I want to be clear about that.
Really?
Yes, that's exactly
Maybe
right.
you
We target
should.
no group because of.
Maybe you should, because there is a religion operating within these United States that is a hate group that calls for the extermination of an entire race and religion of people, the Jews, calls for an extermination of the nation of Israel, that literally carries out actions geared toward that end. That religion is the most hateful and vile, hate-filled group in the world, at least when it comes to world religions. There are no other world religions. Not Hinduism, not Buddhism, not Christianity, nothing that rivals the hate that Islam shows and calls for, by the way, to be carried out. And the SPLC is like, well, you can look it up and see if we have any. I don't know. Of course, you know you don't. And with good reason, because it's not about hate. Your fraudulent SPLC is out there to make money and to get rich off of fomenting hate, not fighting hate, fomenting hate. That's what this is all about.
Of its religion. We target groups because they express statements and engage in activities that demean and vilify.
So you brought up LGBTQ groups
I'm sorry,
a second
Mr.
ago.
Roy.
So you brought up LGBT groups a minute ago. So you think there's a bunch of Islamic groups that are pro-LGBTQ? Is that the position of the SPLC? I just want to make sure the record is reflecting that.
There was audible laughter in the chamber as you just heard him just completely nail this this clown show, this Brian Fair, because what Chip Roy just said there is extraordinarily important. They're targeting Christian groups as being hate groups because Christian groups don't believe you should chop the breasts off of healthy girls and chop the penis and testicles off of healthy boys, and then play mad scientists experimenting with other flesh to sew into their places to try to flip them from one sex to another. There are Christian groups that oppose that. And so the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, socialist pushing leftist crap, they call that hate for the LGBTQ community because they oppose that stuff. They call them hate, and they're on the hate map of the SPLC. But there are no Islamic groups on the hate map of the SPLC, despite the Islamic groups being against not just the bodily mutilation of children, but against gay people. All types of gay, all of the other letters on the LGBTQ alphabet mafia there, all of them. They help. The Islamic hate groups in the United States and around the world, here's what they do in their home countries. They hang people by the neck from cranes for being gay. They throw them off the top of buildings. They execute and stone them to death. This is what the Islamic faith believes. That's how they support the LGBTQ community, yet none of them are on the list. Christian groups, though, that don't believe in same-sex marriage and don't believe in transing of kids, they're on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map. How wild and extraordinary is that? All right, let's watch. This is Brandon Gill taking his turn. Brandon Gill, who, by the way, is becoming one of my favorite members of Congress, who, of course, is the head in the House of the fraud investigation, J.D. Vance's fraud investigation task force. But this is Brandon Gill having his turn with Brian Fair. Watch.
Shifting gears a little bit, your organization said that restricting and banning abortion is a tool of that the far right uses to maintain white supremacy. Do you believe that pro-lifers are white supremacists?
I believe that reproductive liberty is.
No, do you believe that pro-lifers are white supremacists?
I will tell you what I believe if you're asking.
Yes or no?
I can't answer that question, yes or no.
I don't think that pro-lifers are white supremacists. Do you?
What I think is that reproductive liberty is a right that every woman should enjoy.
How many babies in the United States that are...
Pause that there just again, because I want to highlight the sometimes uselessness of some of these committee hearings, in all honesty. And it's because of people like this clown asked a direct question. Do you think pro-life groups are hate groups? I believe that religious liberty is every woman's right. He didn't ask you a gosh damn thing about what you think reproductive rights should be. He asked you, are pro-life groups hate groups directly? 3 times, and 3 times he got no answer. This is why I could never be in Congress, never in a million years. Because if I'm sitting in Brandon Gill's seat right now, he's staying composed, and I would be like, answer the GD question. Do you think they're hate groups? Which I think sometimes people would like to hear, but obviously it would be non-productive. And Brandon Gill is trying to be a little bit more productive than that. So let me continue that.
Aborted or black?
I'm going to back that question up so you can...
Reproductive liberty is a right that every woman should enjoy.
How many babies in the United States that are aborted are black? About 40% of abortions nationwide are of black babies. Blacks represent about 13% of the population. Does that sound like something a white supremacist would oppose?
What I would say again is that SPLC supports reproductive liberty.
Calling somebody a white supremacist is a pretty serious charge, isn't it? I would think you would be able to defend that if your organization says that. You clearly seem unable to.
Mr. Gill, I'm not sure why you would think I'm able to do anything.
Because you're the president of the SPLC, which labels pro-lifers as racists.
Well,
does your organization just hurl around epithets like that without any justification?
Mr. Gill, what we do is
I'm giving you the opportunity to.
You're not giving me the
Mr. Chairman, what's he referring to? And can he let the witness answer the question? This is outrageous.
No, it's not. The time
Allow him to.
What's outrageous is that nobody has given Jamie Raskin 5 across the eyes yet. That's what's outrageous, because somebody needs to just reach over and whap, shut up, and let Mr. Gill question this cooperating witness. The president of the Southern Poverty Law Center says pro-life groups are racists and white supremacists. Yet, pro-life groups advocate for what? They advocate for babies being allowed to be born. 40% of the abortions in the United States are of black babies, despite women making up just 6%. Black women making up 6% of the population. 6% of the population has 40% of the abortions. Pro-life groups are against that because they want black babies to be born. They want all babies to be given an opportunity to live. And yet they're being called white supremacist groups. Wouldn't white supremacist groups cheer on and help aborting black babies? White supremacist groups don't want more black people. White supremacist groups want to get rid of black people. Yet these pro-life groups want black babies to be born. That's because pro-life groups and conservative groups don't hate black people and aren't white supremacists. They want everybody to be given an opportunity, first to live and then to survive and thrive in this glorious liberty-driven republic. Brandon Gill is exposing this, and Jamie Raskin, the ranking member on this committee, knows it. That's why, as he corners the SPLC president and humiliates him by pointing out that what I just said, that white pro-life activists cannot be white supremacists when they are advocating for black babies to be born, not be killed. And Raskin knows that Fair is just being exposed here. Brian Fair, that is. And the Southern Poverty Law Center being exposed. That's why he had to interrupt and try to stop this humiliation.
I know you don't like
What
my
are you
question.
referring to?
Time
I know you don't
belongs,
like my question.
What are you referring to,
time
Mr. Gill?
belongs to the gentleman from
My time
Texas.
here.
It's now expired, but he will be able to ask his last question and we'll give the witness a chance to respond.
All right, I'll give my last question to Dr. King. Dr. King, are pro-lifers white supremacists?
Pro-lifers cannot be white supremacists. Pro-lifers believe in life from the womb to the tomb and beyond. Pro-lifers fight for every baby in the womb, regardless of skin color. We have been aborted as Blacks in America disproportionately. And so the white supremacists are Planned Parenthood, who admitted that they do have racist underpinning with an agenda to reduce the Black population by abortion.
That, of course, is Dr. Alveda King, the niece of Martin Luther King Jr., and she just brought it home, didn't she? I mean, that was exactly what needed to be pointed out there. That's what needed to be said. It's impossible for pro-life groups to be white supremacists because they literally advocate for all life, including and regardless of skin color. She pointed it out in a way that, of course, Jamie Raskin, Brian Farah, none of them possibly could respond to. So Brandon Gill, Jim Jordan, Chip Roy, and others in the committee yesterday really bringing home exactly how disgusting and reprobate the entire Southern Poverty Law Center, or again, what are they called? Yeah, this is them, the socialist pushing leftist crap. That's who they are, and that's what they are. And I was so glad to see that done yesterday. And all of this, of course, happened. And the reason why this hearing was even scheduled for yesterday is because of the indictments that have been handed down by the Department of Justice against that organization for taking donor money and then using that money to fund hate operations so that they can then come rescuing and saying, we are anti-hate. We're going to stop that group that we just funded in the first place. All right. Hey, friends, I've got a piece of advice for you. If you're hearing that little rattle in your, somebody literally, who did I talk to yesterday? No, Monday, I think it was, talked about it. Sounded like there was a marble rolling around in their engine. I can't remember who it was now. It was, anyway, you got something like that going on. I want to tell you about the best answer if you're in Northeast Ohio. Now, if you're watching us in Columbus or Cincinnati or out of state, sorry about this, but if you're anywhere near Lakewood in Northeast Ohio, your answer to whatever is happening with your car is right here. It's Charlie's Auto Repair in Lakewood on Madison Avenue, as you can see. The most important thing there is the phone number, 216-470-0170. Charlie and his team have been, and again, I say team, he makes fun of me because he's pretty much a one-man operation, but he's got staff in the office writing things up as well, his family. But Charlie and Charlie's Auto Repair, just very unusual. How? Because they're honest. It's hard to find an honest mechanic that isn't going to rip you off and charge you more for the labor than they told you would, or parts that you don't need to be replaced. Charlie is an honest mechanic, and that's why I'm happy to work with him and happy to promote him and happy to be a partner with him on this project of ours. So I want you to consider that when your next knock or ping or some kind of a repair is needed. Maybe your transmission isn't quite shifting exactly as smoothly as it should. Have Charlie take a look at it. I'm telling you, you're going to find out what an honest mechanic looks and sounds like, not to mention, by the way, his expertise, whether it be in repair or in general preventative maintenance or in the electronics that so many cars have problems with these days. Charlie's going to take great care of you. He's MAGA and America First all the way, and he'll give you a discount if you are a veteran, a current active military, a first responder, or a concealed carry license holder. So call Charlie and save money and get your car treated right, knowing that it's going to be treated by somebody who's an honest guy up front, first and always. 216-470-0170, 216-470-0170. Thank you to Charlie for being foundational partner for Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. All right. So here's what I want to do now. I want to kind of pivot over a little bit, if I can, to my conversation last night with Dr. John R. Lott, because what we were talking about is one of the biggest stories of the day, and really, quite frankly, in the country right now. And that is the Karmelo Anthony trial came to a very, very sudden halt yesterday, a very, very quick verdict. They had closing arguments in the case yesterday morning. Quickly, instructions were given and they were dispatched to the jury room for deliberations. It took them less than 3 hours to come out with something that we all knew was going to be the case. That Karmelo Anthony did, in a premeditated manner, bring a knife to a track meet, then go into an opponent's tent and try to start trouble so he could use that knife. Came into the tent, started goading and pushing the individuals there to do something about him, to evict him. All right. He sat there, refused to move, and told them, "Why don't you do something about it? Touch me and see what happens." Whole time, his hand in his bag, gripping the knife that he wanted to stab somebody with that day. So the jury came out in less than 3 hours and said guilty. And of course, the black activists outside the courtroom immediately launched into "America is a racist country," because this black male has just been held accountable for his crime. And by the way, they started that even before the sentence was handed down, which happened last night and a few hours later. And that sentence was, which could have been, by the way, as many as 99 years. The jury showed mercy, probably because of his age at the time of the heinous murder that he committed, which was 17. He's 19 now. Gave him just 35 years instead of 99, and eligible for parole in half that time. So 19 and 17 and a half is 36 and a half to my counting. So before he's 40, he'll be able to get right back out on the streets and start stabbing Whitey again. Sorry, it is what it is. The war on whiteness is real, and the leftist black activists who are outside, along with the left-wing women, the radical left-wing, the awfuls, the angry white female liberals out there protesting with them, demanding, an appeal and essentially threatening white people all over the country. One of them outside said, both of those white boys, the twins, should have been killed. Not only should Austin Metcalf have been killed, but his twin brother Hunter should also have been killed by Karmelo Anthony, who murdered one, but didn't get to the other one. So that's how insanely radical this race division that has been fomented by the left is in this country. They were out there yesterday saying, because one black murderer was held accountable in this case, that the criminal justice system is racist, the whole country is racist. So I decided to put some of that to the test. Let's talk about the criminal justice system. Let's talk about who's really in jeopardy. Let's talk about who's being threatened more by another race in this country. Are African Americans the ones who are in jeopardy, the way they're screaming outside of that courtroom, that we don't have anything to do when they come for us? When they come for us, and I don't want to replay much of this, but when they come for us, if we walk away, we lose, and if we fight back, we lose, as if this was a self-defense case for real. Anyway, I heard all of that, and I said, I'm going to go to the source, because nobody knows the stats with respect to white crime, black crime, Latino crime, et cetera, quite like John R. Lott does. Dr. Lott is the founder and the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Again, he does this like nobody else does. So I want to go ahead and bring the interview forth here. I interviewed, again, Dr. Lott last night so that he wouldn't have to get up early this morning. And this was a very important conversation. It's about 40 minutes, and I want you to watch every single bit of it. And we'll get into the chat a little bit. A sentence of 5 to 99. Let's back that up at the beginning. All right. So, John, obviously, you know why you're here. We're here. So we're going to get into this conversation now. John, I'm just going to throw this up on the screen because why not? Let's see the words in print here. Karmelo Anthony was found guilty a little bit earlier today. And I just deleted that. Sorry. Yeah, Karmelo Anthony was found guilty and sentenced on the same day by a jury, which is unusual to my knowledge. You perhaps, Dr. John R. Lott Jr., know more about that. Sentencing is usually the purview of the judge. You know, the guilt or innocence is the job of the jury, but the jury got to go back and deliberate a sentence of 5 to 99 years for Karmelo Anthony after he stabbed Austin Metcalf to death.
Right.
They came back with the number on the low end, to say the least, 35. And that's if he served them all. He's eligible for parole in half of that time, so 17 and a half years, which means he could be out stabbing people again by the time he's 40, John. First, before we get into the statistics that I brought you in to talk about, give me your thoughts on that verdict from what you were able to cover of that case in Frisco, Texas, and that sentence, John.
Well, I mean, it was kind of a foregone conclusion that he was going to be found guilty. The defense really didn't even put on a defense. They had one witness, as I understand, and even he really didn't help them very much. But if you're going to put on a case involving self-defense, you're going to have to put the defendant up on the stand so he can go and say, you know, what was in his mind when the event happened. And they didn't do that. So they couldn't even really raise a self-defense argument. Instead, I guess they were bringing up something that basically the victim basically was responsible for acting in such a way as he stabbed himself or something crazy like that. So, and
that's a really important point. The first point you just made, John, and I want to follow up on and see if you can, because again, I'm not a criminal defense lawyer or a lawyer of any kind, and I'm not even trying to play one here on a podcast, but I'm reasonable and sensible and know enough about the law to know that if you're claiming you were defending yourself, you're claiming what you did was a righteous action because you feared for your life or feared for significant bodily harm. That's what self-defense means. You kind of have to go up and tell the jury what you were afraid of, right? What you feared, what was going to happen to you when this track athlete who, you know, after being told 15 times, according to multiple witnesses, to leave the tent. It's not your space. And when this track athlete comes over and gives you a slight shove to make you leave, which you dared him to do, touch me and see what happens. Okay, tell us how you were in fear for your life, so much so that you had to reach in and get a lethal weapon, which for some reason you had on your person or in your bag to defend yourself. If you're going to call self-defense and you don't present a case that says, here's what I was defending myself against, it's kind of hard to get a jury to believe that, right?
Right. Look, there are many issues with regard to a self-defense claim. You can't initiate the conflict. And it seems pretty clear that this individual who committed the murder initiated the conflict. And then even if the other person initiated it, you're only allowed to use force that's, proportional to what you're facing there. You can only use it if you can only use deadly force if you're in real risk of death or serious injury yourself. And somebody pushing you, with just their hands and no weapons, is a long ways from saying that the person would normally believe that they were at serious risk of death or serious injury. And so, my guess is they just realized that they weren't going to be able to make the case, really, that putting this murderer on the stand, he would just be ripped apart by the prosecution. And so they didn't even put him on the stand. But it's really telling that they couldn't put him on the stand because, as you say, he couldn't answer those questions. What was in his mind? What did he fear? So, as I say, it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be found guilty unless you had somebody who snuck on the jury who just wanted to have jury nullification or something. I mean, obviously, you've had a lot of demonstrations and stuff. This has been kind of a cause celeb in the Black community, I guess.
Oh, big time.
There. And so, that was another concern I had with just the demonstrations. I mean, we've seen this in Minneapolis with the George Floyd case and others where, you probably have intimidation that's occurring of the jury pool that's there. And, if I guess I was a little surprised that the judge didn't try to sequester the jurors even before this. I mean, obviously they would have been sequestered if it had taken them a while to go and come to a verdict on this. But I know the judge kind of moved the demonstrators a little ways away from the courthouse, but
Yeah.
I suspect people could still be impacted by that. But in any case, they came back with a guilty verdict, and it's
What's your opinion of the sentence again? And I don't know how commonplace this is, John, and you do crime research for a living, so you maybe know of more of these kinds of things. But I don't recall at least a high-profile case in which the jury was actually tasked with deciding the sentence. Usually they do the guilt, like we said in the beginning, guilt or innocence. And if they're guilty, that it's the judge who listens to all of the victim impact testimony and all the other things and considers and makes that number. So first of all, what is your knowledge about jurors making that call? And secondly, what do you think of the 35-year decision that they gave?
Right. Well, I mean, what juries will do is they'll go and say, is he guilty of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter? They'll have different counts that will be before them that the prosecutor has decided to charge them with. And based upon which one of those counts that they'll say, there'll be different prison term lengths that are associated with it. Juries aren't supposed to take into account normally what the length of the sentence is. They're just supposed to say, here's what makes a first degree murder. Here's what makes a second degree murder, and so on. And they'll just see, did the facts of the case, involve premeditation? Those will be the types of things that they'll decide to know which one to pigeonhole it in. And based on that, there's certain ranges of penalties that will be there based on that. And then the judge, as you say, if they say first degree murder and, it's 25 years to life, the judge then within that range will pick what the sentence will be.
Yeah, the language of the reporting that I heard as this was covered today was they were using the language sudden passion. The reporting said that, this is a Fox News reporter, that the jury was going to have to decide if sudden passion was in play here. In other words, it almost makes, or not. Sudden passion, they said the maximum he could get would be 20 years. If there was no sudden passion, then he could get anywhere between the 5 and 99 years. And it's weird to me because I hear sudden passion. It almost makes it sound like an impulse killing, which would almost be manslaughter as opposed to murder. And the judge gave the jury in the guilt phase of the trial the choice between murder and manslaughter. They chose murder. So why is what I deem to be, kind of synonymous with manslaughter, sudden passion, being considered in the sentencing phase?
Right. Well, I mean, that's basically the difference between murder and manslaughter, whether, first degree murder is premeditated. It's passion, you walk in on your wife having an affair with somebody and you go nuts and you kill the guy at that time. That would be considered sudden passion. I assume in this case, given how long kind of the back and forth went on between the murderer and his victim there, that, as you say, given 15 requests to leave the area and his back and forth there, they probably said to themselves, this wasn't sudden passion. This is something that, occurred over a substantial enough period of time that there was forethought involved in what he was doing. I mean, he could have backed down at any point there, or it could have ended, but it didn't. So, that I can't get into the jury's minds. I'm sure.
No, I understand. I'm more interested in the process and how they're allowed to consider basically manslaughter in the sentencing phase when they were given that option in the guilt phase, and they said no, it wasn't manslaughter, it was premeditated insofar as he brought a knife to a track meet and kept his hand in that bag where his knife was as he goaded somebody to dare to put him out of touch me and see what happens. So they said it wasn't sudden passion, it was happening. So why that was even a part of the sentencing phase?
Well, because I assume that was part of, I didn't listen to the whole trial, but I assume, or even much of the trial, I just got the media accounts from, but I assume that's the defense at some point at least raised that as a possibility that was going on there. And so that was something that, the prosecution likely gave the jury the choice between murder and manslaughter. Sometimes prosecutors do that to make sure that they get the guy convicted on something. Okay. Now there's risks to that, because if you give lesser charges there, even though you think that the person should be convicted of the most serious charge, you may get compromises in the jury that move it down to the lower charge. And if you hadn't done that, they said, well, we got to convict him of something, so we'll convict him of murder. And so that's, those are all calculated decisions that the prosecution makes in terms of what they're going to charge him with.
Right. All right, Dr. John R. Lott Jr. I want the primary reason I reached out to you to talk about this is because of some of the great research you've done, statistical research on crime, and by all kinds of different metrics and demographics: crime by race, by age, by type, by weapon, et cetera, and I knew you had some numbers involving intra and interracial crime and the statistics. In other words, white people killing white people, black people killing black, Hispanic, et cetera, and then interracial is when one race kills another. And you've done a lot of work on that, and I want to ask you about it. And the reason I brought you on to do this, John, is because of some of this. I'm going to share this real quick. I'm going to scroll just for a little while for you and for the audience, as I did for myself earlier, as some of this was happening. I was looking at and for the reactions of some of the crowds of black activists and left-wing activists, not all of them black, but overwhelmingly. A lot of them were the angry white female liberals, the awfuls, as they're sometimes referred to. But this is the kind of stuff that we saw and heard. This is Dominique Alexander. He is the head of the National Something Action Network. Basically, he's been representing the Anthony family from the beginning in all of this, and he declared that Black lives don't matter in Collin County, Texas, because they allowed a black murderer who stabbed an unarmed 17-year-old to death to be convicted. And that apparently means Black lives don't matter. I want you to watch this for a moment.
I speak on behalf of myself, Minister Dominique Alexander. I speak on behalf of myself as president of the Next Generation Action Network.
I don't hear anything.
The Next Generation Action Network wanted to respect this process, to be able to make sure that nobody said that the Next Generation Action Network obstructed this process, interfered in this process. But what this process did is showing that Black lives do not matter in Collin County. It showed us that time and time in American history, it has shown us to remove emotions from yet the law.
So he says that Black lives don't matter in Collin County. And John, I just found that interesting, and maybe you did too, because the only life that was lost here that didn't matter was the white life of Austin Metcalf. Right. Karmelo Anthony's life wasn't taken by somebody stabbing him in the chest because he went into, their private, track team tent area and then goaded somebody to do something to him. To my knowledge, the only life lost here was a white life, right?
Right. Well, I mean, Blacks commit over half the murders in the United States, about 55% or so, even though they make up, about 13% of the population. So they're way overrepresented in terms of the murders. Now, the thing is, Blacks are overwhelmingly killing other Blacks. 90% of Blacks are murdered by other Blacks. And so, if you want to go and save Black lives, you're going to have to reduce the murders being committed by Blacks out there, overwhelmingly.
That was brought up outside the courtroom, John. That was brought up by a number of people who were arguing with the activists who were out there saying that Karmelo Anthony was mistreated and Black Lives Don't Matter and so forth. And they pointed out, and a number of them were screaming, white people kill white people too, and black people kill black people, and Hispanics kill Hispanics. That is nothing. We're not playing that. That's not what this is about. They're trying to dismiss those realities as being irrelevant to this situation, because, and I guess this is again the core of the reason I wanted you to come on, is to talk about when it's not black on black and white on white, when it is interracial and one race is killing the other. These are the stats that I know that you have, and that's what I want you to share as they make this argument somehow that black people are being mistreated when it comes to the criminal justice system and interracial crime.
Right. Well, I mean, you can look at violent crime overall. There's data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Basically, blacks commit violent crimes against whites at 9 times the rate that whites commit violent crimes against blacks. Blacks commit violent crimes against Hispanics at about 2.5 times the rate that Hispanics commit violent crimes against blacks. And blacks commit violent crimes against Asians at about 89 times the rate that Asians commit violent crimes against blacks.
That's an extraordinary number. And when you, all of those numbers, actually, each of the metrics that you talked about there, black on white, black on Hispanic, black on Asian, and the reverse. And these numbers come from where, John? From anybody who's listening right now. I want them to know, first of all, about your website, crimeresearch.org, which is the hub of all of your tremendously meticulous accounting of things by way of the research that you do. But can you give us just at least a little bit of sourcing for anybody who's
Sure. It comes from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, which is part of the United States Department of Justice. They have report their national crime victimization data, and I have links to their sources on the website, on our website.
This one right here, right? If everybody can see that, this blue link right here. Let me click that real quick and just kind of show people what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Right. So that's data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. That's their report that they put out.
And so this is a report from 2018. And I don't know how far back the years go for these things, but I'm trying to anticipate every reaction to this, John, that we might get from the left and people who don't want to hear these things. And one of the things that I think they'll say is, well, that's Trump's Department of Justice. What we're talking about crosses over many years, many administrations, and so forth, and many attorneys general and departments of justice, correct?
Right. I mean, the national crime victimization data has been done for 53 years now. And, it's pretty much.
The statistics we're talking about right now go back decades. This isn't like a new phenomenon.
Right. I mean, they don't break it down by race, different, what racial group is committing crimes against another race every year, but they've broken it down before. And you pretty much get the same types of data. And you get that also when you look at murders, for example. You have, so it's just violent, and that comes out every year. And so you could pick any year for the last, that comes from the FBI crime data, and that goes back to the 70s.
This is one of your reports, John, from 2023, and this is the intra-racial crime percentages of people who kill people who are just like themselves. Again, black on black, white on white, and Hispanic on Hispanic, and so forth. And that's pretty common because people generally commit crimes in the neighborhood in which they live, and overwhelmingly people live in neighborhoods with people who are largely like them, right?
Right. No, that's very true. So, one of the ironies is you see so much of the discussion is people care about the race of the criminal, and I can understand that, but You know, if you're trying to be easy on black criminals, the people that are going to be harmed are going to be black victims. If you try to be easy on Hispanic criminals, you're going to be relatively hard than on Hispanic victims. People commit crimes in their neighborhoods overwhelmingly. So they have people who have similar race and socioeconomic backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. What does it say, John, about when you look at some of these stats? I'm looking again. This is another, a graph that you have here, and this chart shows the percentage of whites murdered by blacks and blacks murdered by whites from the years 2019 and 2020. And what does it say when you consider the populations? Because it's roughly a 70% white country. It's roughly 13% of the country is African American, and then Hispanics and Asian and so on and so forth fill out the rest. So it's 70% of the population is white, and if only 13% of the population is African American, what does that mean when you see numbers like this in the interracial crime stats?
Well, I mean, it means that blacks are unfortunately dramatically committing crimes against other groups at a rate that's very disproportionate to their share of the population. And so you want to try to adjust for that. I mean, if it depends what question you're asking, but if you're asking,
well, I guess the reason I'm asking the question, John, is I want to get an understanding and to give an answer to those who are outside that courthouse, for example, screaming that this criminal justice system is being unfair to blacks. They're putting more blacks like Karmelo Anthony in prison, and they're doing it on racist basis. In fact, there were no black jurors in this case, and they see that as an example of the system being harder on blacks than they are on whites.
Right. Well, again, we get back to what I was trying to say before, and that is, if overwhelmingly, not obviously this is an exception in this case, but overwhelmingly, people commit murders against others who are the same race as the murderer, and so if you don't want to punish black murderers, you're going to get a lot more blacks being murdered. I mean, that's just the simple point there. And so the question becomes, do you care about the murderer or do you care about the victims? And if I care about blacks or Hispanics or even illegal aliens, because I think they're disproportionately have crimes committed against them by other illegals, I think one should at least think about trying to protect the victims there, and realize that being lenient on the criminals means you're going to have more of the victims who are similar to the very people that you claim that you care about.
I think that's fairly stated. John, I want to go back here now and share another video from one of the individuals outside protesting the guilty verdict and ultimately the sentence, which was very lenient when you think about it. Could have been 99 years, it's 35. And again, 17 and a half for parole. If things go well for him, he'll be out before he's 40. But this is one of the activists who was really, really angry. And I'd like everybody to listen to what she has to say. And then I'd like you to get your response to it here, John.
Why do we have to care anymore? Why are we even here?
I can't hear her, just so you know.
Why are we here? What are we here for?
Oh, you're not able to hear her, John?
No, but you can tell me what she said.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to let it play though, so everybody else can.
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, it might be just an earphone thing or something. But here we go.
Why do we have to care anymore? Why are we even here? To be honest, why are we here? What are we here for? Because if we take up for ourselves, we go to jail. If we don't, we die. So it's a catch-22 in this situation. What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for it. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin. Let me ask you this right now.
So what she said largely there, John, was that we're damned if we do. She's talking about she and her people as blacks in America. We're damned if we do and damned if we don't. We can't take up for ourselves. If we do, we get thrown in jail. And if we don't, we die. And then she said, I have 5 boys. What do I tell them now? What do I tell them that they're supposed to do? You can't walk away anymore. And I'm looking at the specifics of this case, and it is literally the opposite of that. If he had walked away when he was told to get out of the tent, we're not here right now. He didn't choose to walk away. But what do you, and again, they're framing this as somehow, some way, the systemic racism of America is leading to the Black population having to make choices, in her words, that are impossible for them to choose. What should she tell her 5 sons, she says?
Right. Well, look, I mean, I think it's important that people be able to go and defend themselves. But I think you have to understand what the law is, and that you can only use force that's proportionate to the risk that you're facing. You can't initiate a problem, okay? That's one thing, and he obviously didn't obey that part of the law. But you know, if a reasonable person would view you as facing serious risk of injury or death, you know, you're allowed to use, you know, considerable force to go and protect yourself. But having somebody push you, you know, unless they were trying to push you in front of a subway or something like that, is a lot different than somebody actually facing serious injury or death. And so I would tell her boys to be thoughtful about these types of things, and not to act in the heat of the moment there, and count to 5, okay, before they do something. But I mean, I'll be the first to defend somebody using, you know, defensive actions to protect themselves or others. And I think people should be able to do that. And I think there's Blacks in particular, given that they are victims of violent crime at such high rates, particularly poor Blacks who live in high crime urban areas. You know, I think it's important that Blacks be able to go and defend themselves. We recently put out a survey for concealed carry permit holders and people who are carrying in the United States. And what we found is that Blacks, if you're looking at people who carry concealed all or almost all the time, they are disproportionately carrying compared to their share of general election voters. They make up about 11% of general election voters, but they make up over 15% of those who are carrying all or most of the time. And I think that's great news. I think because they're the ones who are very likely to be victims of crime. For Hispanics, it's even more lopsided. They also make up about 11% of general election voters, but they make up over 18% of those who carry all or most of the time. And so, you know, but what you find is that the type of person who goes through the process to get a concealed carry permit, they're very law-abiding. You know, you don't shoot somebody just because, you know, they're upset with you or something like that. You have to really be in serious risk of injury or death. And so that's what I would tell her. I would just say, look, understand the law, know your rights. You know, it's important that your boys be able to go and protect themselves, but tell them to think twice before they do these things, and for them to understand what rights they have.
You're much more eloquent, excuse me, much more eloquent than I am, because my answer would be tell them not to stab people without cause, because that's what happened here. Karmelo Anthony brought a knife to a track meet and intended to use it. Don't know against whom, but he went into that tent and intentionally goaded somebody into acting to get him out of there and saying, I'm not leaving. 15 requests to get out and not doing it. And with a hand on a knife, according to multiple witnesses, his hand never left that bag, and they could see the veins in his forearm bulging because he was gripping something. And then as soon as somebody came up to him to actually get him to leave, which he dared them to do, he pulled it out and committed this act. Tell your boys, don't do that. It would be my much more simplistic response. Don't do that. That's what you tell your sons. But that's
right. Well, I just wanted to be able to also tell her what they can do. But
yeah.
So anyway, because her point, as I understood it, was just that, you know, what can her boys do? And so they have certain rights, but there are limits on what they can do.
So, John, back to the core here, which is again why I wanted to bring you on. And all of this work is available on the website. Let me share this real quick. This is Dr. John R. Lott Jr.'s official website. It's Crime Prevention Research Center's website. It's crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org, and that's where you'll be able to find, excuse me, statistics like John brought out here. This is the reason I brought him on, was specifically to talk about this. The number of people within the same race who kill themselves, or the percentages rather. And then when you get to the interracial crime, the reality is it is a very, very dangerous place to be in this country when you're talking about interracial crime, not for Black people, but for white people. For them to commit, them being the Black population, to commit over 9 times more murders of white people when they are only 13% of the population. And John, you probably break this down even further, or the FBI crime statistics do, and I'm sure you could pull these. The overwhelming majority of that 13% that are doing it is a small majority or small minority, right? We're talking about, Black males, aged what to what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you only have a few percent of the population is committing the vast majority of the crimes that are there. Even among criminals, you may have 5% of the criminals committing the vast majority of the crimes that are there. And so, it's a very small group of people. And that's one reason why, those are the types of people you want to make sure get locked up, so that they're not going and harming other Blacks or other Hispanics.
Right. And that's extremely important for people to know too. Again, when we talk about that stat that everybody knows about 13% of the population committing more than 50% of the homicides, it's really only, a tiny percentage of that 13%. It's male, and it's, between the ages of, 14 and 25 or whatever that number is. Karmelo Anthony fits right in the middle of that. And John, the last thing I want to ask you about this is the racist aspect, or the racial allegations, because again, radicals on the left who don't seem to want any accountability for anybody that's in the quote unquote racial minority, and only have concerns about crimes when they're committed by the racial majority. They will say that everything you and I are talking about now is racist. They will say that, saying that Karmelo Anthony's verdict was a just verdict is racist. Ben Shapiro, I think, gets credit for coining the phrase, facts don't care about your feelings. You're not dealing in feelings here, and you're not picking on a race when you do facts, when you pull statistics, all of the federal statistics, right? For the research you do, it's not about feelings, and it's not about intent to demonize a race or anything of that nature. It's just, here's what the numbers show. They bear something out, and you can recognize patterns or you cannot, but it's facts, not feelings. Is that fair to say?
I hope so. I hope that's what I'm trying to do. So, you got to understand what the data is if you're going to try to save lives.
That's right. And that's ultimately what this is about too. Save lives, teaching. You spend a good deal of time on our conversation here talking about what that woman should tell her kids, her Black sons. And it's about how to protect themselves as well. And the protection isn't going to be coming from white people, as the statistics bear out. The protection is going to have to be against other people who look like them in their communities over 90% of the time. That's, just the way that this works. So you want to save lives, recognize where the threats are. And if you're Black, the threat is going to come from people who look like you. If you're white, the biggest threat is going to come from people who look like you. And if you don't know the statistics when it comes to the interracial crime as well, then you won't be prepared to protect yourself, which is, again, as you point out, it's all about saving lives. That's the reason you do the research you do, right?
Yeah, well, that's what motivated me to get involved with this, to try to figure out what we could do to save lives. And that's the bottom line.
John, last thing I want to ask you, and this has nothing to do with this case, but it's just that since I've got you on the line, I want to ask you about another piece that you have out. You're constantly putting tremendous work out there in a variety of different publications, and you did one just last week for Real Clear Investigations about violent crime dropping when more people are armed. When people carry weapons, violent crime goes down. That flies in the face of the narrative we hear from the gun control groups who say that more guns means more deaths. Can you give me just a minute or two on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, this last year, it looks like we have the lowest murder rate ever recorded in U.S. history. They have data going back to 1900. The lowest previous murder rate was about 4.5 per 100,000. And it looks like this last year was probably maybe even slightly below 4 per 100,000. So that's 1/9 below the previous low. In 2024, it was about 5 per 100,000. So you can see how much things have gone down. And, it's at the same time, you see a huge increase in the number of people who are carrying. We've collected data on the number of concealed carry permits for about 15 years or so. But what we find is that over the last few years, there's been a huge explosion in constitutional carry states, such as Ohio, where you live, where it's no longer necessary for people to have a permit. And the number of permits are falling in those constitutional carry states. But at the same time, we know more people are carrying. In order to try to get a handle on how much more people are carrying at the same time that the number of permits are falling, we've been doing a survey. And the last survey we did was about 1.5 years ago. And in the interim, it looks like there was about a 5 percentage point increase in the rate that adults in the United States who are general election voters are carrying. You have almost 30% of adults in the United States say that they carry at least once in a while. There's big differences between the 29 constitutional carry states and the rest of the country. But there's lots of interesting breakdowns. I mentioned before, Blacks and Hispanics are carrying at relatively high rates compared to their share of general election voters. Even though Democrats as a whole are kind of underrepresented, we have it broken down this time by kind of the political views of people, like, are you very liberal, moderate, conservative, or very conservative? And what we found is that the group among those political views that actually is most likely to carry all or most of the time are actually people who are very liberal. Very conservatives are the second most, and then kind of people more in the middle are the least likely to go and carry all or most of the time. I found that interesting. And anyway, there's a number of different things. Women, if you look at those who carry all or most of the time, are pretty close to men in terms of the rate that they carry. And I think all this is great in the sense that if my research convinces me of anything, there are basically a couple groups in the country who benefit the most. The people who are the most likely victims of violent crime, that overwhelmingly tends to be poor Blacks who live in high crime urban areas, and people who are relatively weaker physically, like women and the elderly. And so the fact that you're seeing those groups in particular are carrying more, and that's particularly true for the constitutional carry states. Women carry at relatively higher rates there. And that's kind of understandable. I mean, one of the benefits of constitutional carry compared to having to go and get a permit is if a woman's being stalked or threatened, it could take, depending on the state, it could take 60 or 90 days. I mean, a fast state may be 45 days. There are some places like parts of Connecticut or Los Angeles where it can take over a year to get your permit. And, she may not be able to wait that long. She may not be able to wait 45 days, let alone 60 or 90 or a year. She may need to get protection right away. And constitutional carry allows her to do that. And may be one of the reasons why you see women in constitutional carry states carrying at relatively higher rates.
John, phenomenal research. I encourage people to read that. Real Clear Investigations. They get that where? Is that going to be?
Well, they can get it on our website at crimeresearch.org, crimeresearch.org.
Got it. That's the most important thing there. John, thank you for bringing the stats and bringing, again, no matter how many feelings they hurt, that's not the intention. The intention is to educate and inform people, and these stats are extraordinarily important.
It's just lives. So anyway, thank you very much for your time.
You got it, John. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you very much. All right, there you go. That's John R. Lott Jr., and he has done some extraordinary work, obviously, in this field. And it was really unfortunate that he couldn't hear the one video that I was trying to play, because I was going to play another one for him that I think you'll be able to hear, and maybe we'll do that another time, I guess. But again, it's just this constant drumbeat of, we're oppressed, we're oppressed, we're oppressed, we're oppressed. And white people oppress us, white people oppress us. This is just the narrative, and it's all being brought back out because somebody in the Black community committed a completely horrific and unnecessary cold-blooded murder of somebody in the white community. And yet we're oppressed because somebody got held accountable for it. To a small degree, 35 years for somebody who's 19 now and can get out in 17 and a half years. So somebody 36, 37 years old, think there's a lot of life left? Yeah. How much life does Austin Metcalf have left after 17 and a half years from now? Oh, that's right. None. His life was taken forever from his family, from his loved ones, from himself. So it's a very frustrating thing. And like I said, I don't care if people are going to listen to statistics, which is what we're doing here and what we're talking about. Listening to and understanding statistics, the realities, and still claim that it's racist to talk about it. It's racist for me. It's racist for John Lott to write about it. He's written books about it. He's written articles about it. Is it racist really to say those things? Or is it a you problem? Because you don't want to have to admit, you know what, and I'm understanding. I don't care what your ethnicity is, what demographic you belong to. Maybe it's men versus women. Whatever it is, nobody likes to be categorized as saying you're part of a group that does bad stuff, because then it makes you feel like, well, you're saying I must be going to do bad stuff too. I get that. I do. I feel bad for people who get lumped in with other people simply because they share a trait with another group. I really do. But I can't let that sadness and that, boy, that's too bad, affect the reality, the statistical, factual reality about what is dangerous and what isn't, and what needs to be done to protect people, which is what John is talking about. So yeah, it must hurt. If you're in the Black community, it probably hurts to know that 13% and really about 6% of the entire population commit more than half the murders in the country. That's gotta suck to hear that, because then it makes you feel like you're a target too, or you're going to be blamed for that too. I don't envy that, and I don't envy is probably the wrong word. I don't discount your feelings in that regard. I don't. But your feelings don't matter here. The facts are what matters. Again, going back to give Ben Shapiro credit. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to stop that here. And let me get myself back on camera again, if I can do that. And all right. Now we've got nothing on the screen. So I'm going to have to come back and figure that out. Oh, you should be able to see me again. And you can't. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's just a screen size thing. There we go. Boom. Okay, good. So that would, like I said, I did that with John Lott last night because he's West Coast, and it would have been 4:30 in the morning there in order to have him come up and come on at 7:30 here. So I recorded that last night, and I've thought a little bit more about what, especially as I just watched it back again, a little bit more about that whole point about it would suck to be, a part of the Black community and to be assumed maybe that you're going to be, more violent, because the statistics show that the Black community is far, 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 far more violent than Asian, Hispanic, or white communities, which are the predominant communities in the country. And so having, a similar characteristic with other people that are doing bad things might make it appear as though you're going to do bad things. And I can really feel bad for that. But the reality is I can do more than just feel bad for that. I can feel that because I have this skin. And it's literally being taught in American schools and being pushed and promoted in American media that if you're born with this skin, you are the oppressor. You're the bad person. You have kinship with the people who held slaves 150 years ago. You are born as a natural born aggressor and oppressor of other people. That's how we are judged. That's what critical theory does. Critical race theory teaches, which of course is prevalent and predominant in so many schools, that if you are born with a darker colored skin than mine, you are automatically a victim. And if you are born with this colored skin, you are automatically an oppressor and you are the guilty. White guilt is a terrible, terrible thing. It's where the awfuls come from. They have white guilt. And as we know, again, I've talked about this before and just to hammer it home one more time. If a black man wants to put a black fist in the air and say, I'm proud to be black, you know what I say to you? Good on you. You should be. You should be. You should be proud of who you are and what you look like and what your family is. And so I have no problem with that at all. I salute it. But if I throw a fist in the air and say, I'm proud to be white, I am a racist, white supremacist. Make that make sense. It just doesn't. It really doesn't. All right. That's all I want to talk about with respect to that for at least for now. I want to remind everybody about my friend Mark. Mark's going to be there tonight, by the way, in Parma. I'm giving a speech tonight at the Parma GOP. And if you are a member of that club, please come out and join us. If you are, you know where it is. Obviously, I don't think it's broadcast where it is because they only want to have members and not, troublemakers. But I'm giving a speech there tonight, and Mark King is going to be there. And then tomorrow night, I'm speaking in Avon Lake, and their conservative Republican club meeting. And Mark is going to be in both places because Mark is just a true patriot. Mark is all about it. He is all about MAGA. He's all about America first, and he's all about helping people. And that's why he has been asking me to get his message out for over the last 5 years now. For the last 5 years plus, since I met Mark, I have been sending senior citizens to him to help with their Medicare. Because that's what he does. He's been doing that for nearly 40 years. I've only known him, like I said, for a little over 5. But I'm sending seniors to Mark for Medicare assistance to get them out of bad plans that they're in, where they're not taking advantage of coverage that's available to them. They're not taking advantage of discounts that are available to them. I've gotten them out of bad plans, and then I've gotten them into good plans. Actually, I haven't done any of that. Mark has done that, but I've sent them to Mark to get out of bad plans and to get new plans started for over 5 years now. And the people that I talk to who are senior citizens are most appreciative, especially when they find out they're not getting a bill from Mark for his services. That's right, not a nickel. Call that phone number on your screen and say, hey, Mark, I'm about to be 65. I need to get on Medicare. What do I do? If you're already on Medicare, call that number on your screen, 440-832-8936, and say, Mark, I don't know if I'm in the best plan for me. I'm paying a lot more than I think I should, and maybe there are some other benefits there that I'm not taking advantage of. Help me out. What's available to me in my area? Mark will take care of you. All right. Mark is a phenomenal guy. He's got a great team over there at Keeping Medicare Simple. The website is keepingmedicaresimple.com, as you can see there. And then the phone number again, 440-832-8936. Mark is a true patriot and again, a foundational partner and supporter of Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. And we appreciate that more than you know. All right, so we got to the Southern Poverty Law Center hearings yesterday. We did the Karmelo Anthony thing. I didn't get to Grand Platner briefly because we're not in Maine. But it matters more than just, to Mainers, because obviously, what are we talking about? We're talking about the United States Senate, and every single vote matters. And to have a communist, socialist, Nazi in the United States Senate is a very dangerous proposition. How do you achieve both of those things. He manages. He's one of the worst human beings, honestly, in this country, and somehow he is on the verge of becoming a senator. If he can beat Susan Collins in Maine, he will be a United States senator. He won the primary yesterday, despite one of the most awful, horrific resumes of any candidate to come down the line in American history for the upper chamber in the United States Congress. I mean that emphatically. One of the worst human beings to come down the line. He has had a Nazi tattoo on his chest for 18 years. He only discovered that it was a Nazi tattoo and then covered it up last year when he decided to run for the Senate. How interesting. That's when he found out. He has a Nazi tattoo. He's a proud socialist and communist. He insults, degrades, and actually celebrated the shooting of American veterans. He's a Marine himself, a former Marine. But he has condemned and criticized and celebrated American servicemen who get shot, Purple Heart recipients, for crying out loud. He is a lecher. He is almost immediately after he got married, he was sexting women and sending D pics of himself, if you understand what that means. He just literally a couple of months ago was on the Kick app, which is an app for hooking up, and it is predominantly populated by young girls, age 13 to 24. It's not an ancient, here's his old resume type situation. It is ongoing. He's one of the worst people, honestly, in the country, and the Democrats are rallying around him. I would love to see what would happen if somebody like Graham Plattner, Nazi tattoo and all, ran for the Senate as a Republican. Holy cow. They already call Trump Hitler. They already call ICE the Gestapo. They already call the cabinet Nazis. The Third Reich, the whole 9 yards. Anybody who supports them, we are all Nazis in their eyes. Now they have an actual Nazi running for Congress, running for Senate, and who is the nominee in the state of Maine now. And they're like, hey, he covered it up. He doesn't have it anymore. And everybody deserves a second chance. And they're somehow defending a guy who proudly told all of the girls that he abused and threatened and roughed up and treated so poorly that this is his Totenkampf. He knows exactly what it was, his Totenkampf. It's more than just a Nazi tattoo. It was a tattoo referencing the most horrific kill groups in the Nazi regime. And he knew it. And that's why he proudly wore it. And now he has to try to explain it away. And the left says that's okay. Again, we're in Ohio, not in Maine. Why should we care? Because his vote will be one of 100 votes. There will be 99 others that may be impacted by something that he does. And that impacts all of us. So that's a very, very short declaration of what we have in front of us right now. We have a battle between what I believe to be good and evil. And I believe that this is evidence. The Democrat Party chose evil. They're rallying around a guy who literally represents evil. And I don't know if they know exactly what they've done here, but I think they may have fortified a Republican base that was very, very hesitant to support somebody like Susan Collins again, because Susan Collins voted to impeach Trump. He is about as rhino-y and as Dem-light as they come. He is usually one of 2 or 3 or 4 recalcitrant Republican senators who do not go along with the agenda and side with the Democrats. But she is now going to be treated as if she is Trump herself, because we have got to do everything we can to get her over the line to stop the threat of the Nazi commie. Strange combination it is, but it's real. That is Graham Plattner. So that happened yesterday. The Maine voters, Maine Democrat voters affirmed yesterday that's who they want carrying their flag. How about that? A Nazi flag with the big blue D on it, with the circle around it, with a Nazi swastika next to it. That's what the Democrats just did yesterday. All right. Thanks again to Dr. John R. Lott Jr. for a tremendous conversation on what's happening, or what happened yesterday, I should say. What I didn't get to, by the way, is the outrage that we have over the sentence, the 35 years. Should have been 99. He got 35. Out for parole, or up for parole in 17 and a half that time, which means a 19-year-old will be about 36 years old and able to have a family, a life, and all of the things that he denied Austin Metcalf from having. But Dr. John R. Lott did a phenomenal job of breaking all of that down for us. All right. I want to welcome our regular Wednesday guest at this time. And I want to greet him with the image that I had created here, because I don't know if he has seen it yet, but take a look at the screen there. And that's right. That's the bus. Get on the magic bus down to Columbus. All right, that's not really the bus. It's going to be a bus, but it's not going to be that particular bus. But I want you to be with us as we go down on Monday, the 22nd to Columbus for what is going to be a phenomenal event. They're calling it One Small Step. This is a celebration of America at 250, and it's being hosted by our friends at Americans for Prosperity Ohio, the Libre Institute, as well as Concerned Veterans for America. And the state director of AFP Ohio is Donovan O'Neill, who joins us now right here. If I can pull up the right image. There he is. Hey, Donovan. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, Bob. Always a pleasure to be with you on a Wednesday morning.
You think I can get that bus wrapped like that by next Monday?
I want to see that number of people still be on the bus when you get to Columbus if they're on the top. That would be quite the feat.
That would be something indeed. I'm really, really excited about this event, Donovan. You broke it 2 weeks ago. We talked about it last week, and asked me to speak at it, which I'm so extraordinarily excited about. What's new? What's new? Let's talk about that first. Then we're going to talk about legislation in the state of Ohio. But let's talk about the One Small Step event coming up on the 22nd.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I'm not giving too much away here, but we're up over 250 RSVPs. Our goal is to get 500 people in the event. We've got about 12 days to go. And as you know, with any event, it builds and builds. It's like a snowball. And so we're really thrilled with where we're at. I think we're going to sell the event out. That's a soft pitch to your listeners, Bob. If you haven't got your ticket yet, get your ticket. It's going to be a sold out event. We're working to add maybe 1 or 2 more special guests. We'll see if we get there, but probably the biggest piece, aside from our excitement around the amount of registrations we have, is we try to have a little fun with this, right? You're going to celebrate America. You got to have some fun. We're going to have some great speeches from folks like you, Jack Windsor, Kelly Williams Bowler, veteran Brian Anderson. But we're also going to have some historical figures joining us. Bob, we've got Abraham and Mary Todd Lincoln joining. We've got Sons of the American Revolution putting together a contingent to come up and join us and bring that patriotic fever. Thomas Edison. We've got Thomas Edison joining us. We've got an OSU football coach, Bob. Who's the greatest of all time Ohio State football coach?
Well, that's probably going to be Woody Hayes, but I know you didn't get Woody Hayes, did you?
We've got Woody Hayes. Certainly it's not the man himself, but it's a top tier reenactor, right? Because look, what this event is all about, right? It's about celebrating in America, and it's about celebrating the small steps ordinary Americans took to do extraordinary things that built this country, that created opportunity for people. And so from, one of the greatest inventors of all time, Thomas Edison, and creating that experience for our guests to be able to interact with him, to, big time OSU football coaches like Woody Hayes, that is, and transformational presidents like Abraham Lincoln, right? Not to sell him short by any measure. We're going to be celebrating America and the people who make this country great. The whole purpose, inspire that next generation of greatness so we can have another 250 years of the best nation on earth.
Amen. And we're going to celebrate the one small steps that have been taken by so many giants historically, but also one small step that we can all take going forward to protect, preserve, and prepare for the next 250. And that's what it's all about. We can all do our part. So I want to remind everybody again, I'm going to pop this up on the screen real quick. It's going to make us look goofy because it's going to split us. But I want you to look for this graphic, if you will. It's on my social media pages. And if you just want to send me an email, bob@strictlyspeaking.org, I can find a way to get these links to you as well. But step number 1 there is the link to register for the event. As Donovan just said, it's going to be filled up. You don't want to wait to get to the event. And if you drive down yourself, that's okay too. But step number 2 gives you the opportunity to click that link and register to get on our bus. It's free. It's leaving Strongsville at about 3 o'clock on Monday, the 22nd. Be departing Columbus around 8:30 or so. Should be back by 10:30, 11 o'clock. And it's going to be a great time. So like I said, I'll be on that bus. I know I have a whole bunch of people who have told me they're trying to get the day off of work or get out of work early so they can leave at 3 o'clock to be there, because it is a Monday. And I understand that. But do what you can to be there and register not only yourself, but the guest you're bringing, if you're bringing your husband or wife or a friend or what have you. But get everybody's name on that, and we'll fill that bus and we'll fill that event center at the Columbus Crew Stadium in Columbus on the 22nd. And it's going to be a wonderful event. I'm very, very excited and honored to be able to be asked to speak at this event, Donovan, and it's going to be tremendous. Okay. Aside from that celebration of 250, there's a lot of hard work being done right now. And let's talk about the House Medicaid Committee and House Bill 795, because, Donovan, you are obviously intimately involved with pushing and promoting this, and you gave great testimony. So let's talk about what 795 does.
Yeah, so House Bill 795 is a bill from Josh Williams that was introduced, I believe it was introduced shortly before, coincidentally, before the reporting by Daily Wire exposing the Medicaid fraud rampant in the state. And it's since been amended by Buckeye Blueprint champion Mike Davila alongside Josh Williams, friendly amendments. But they took that bill, really beefed it up to address a lot of the issues that were identified. Issues, by the way, that probably were avoidable had Governor Mike DeWine not vetoed provision after provision after provision over his years as governor. Neither here nor there, but this bill will strengthen and protect the Medicaid program, beginning a phase one of beginning to root out some of that fraud, waste, and abuse that's been prevalent in, not just Minnesota where you hear about it, but right here in the Buckeye State.
Yeah, it's enormous here. And we saw that reporting, like you said, by the Daily Wire. And some of the numbers that were floating around were just kind of staggering. We're talking billions of dollars, that the Medicaid program. And I'm looking at some of the information that you gave. The Ohio Medicaid has grown from $16.99 billion in fiscal year 2016 to $22.3 billion in fiscal year 2026, now consuming over 50% of the state's total GRF budget. That's an extraordinary number to be playing games with when it's over 50% of the budget, for crying out loud, and it is rife with, as you say, and I'm glad you start with fraud, not waste, fraud, and abuse, as the old saying goes, but fraud first, because that's what's happening here. That, if we can't enact common sense steps, which you outline in this bill that Josh put forth and Mike Davila backs, outlines, protecting it from the beginning instead of prosecuting it from behind, then we've got a problem.
Oh, absolutely. And just to put this into perspective, half the budget, you say, well, it's a lot. We spend twice as much on Medicaid through our state general revenue funds, the money we send to Columbus through our income tax, sales tax, a handful of other minor taxes. We spend twice as much on Medicaid as we do on educating our kids in our K through 12 education system. It's a number that has ballooned out of control. And, one of the key things here, right, is you think about these things as a safety net. You illustrate it like a safety net, right? The problem is we've expanded this safety net so wide, so big, that the only people it serves are the big fat fraudsters and the folks lucky enough to be able to catch it before they fall through. We need to reform this program back to its original intent. That's not going to happen with this bill. It's not going to happen overnight. But that's the direction that we've been advocating for, because if we allow this program to continue to balloon out of control, if we allow this program to continue to experience mission creep beyond what its original intent was to serve, folks like the aged, blind, disabled, serve kids, serve single moms, folks truly in need that otherwise will not receive services, we're going to fail this program, within decades. And that's, the folks who really want to save Medicaid, who want to make sure there's a program in existence for the people who may need it most. They should be the largest and loudest champions for this. But as you can imagine, Bob, you've seen this play out time and time again. It's more about defending a program and its institution than the people it's actually designed to serve.
Yeah, that, you're 1,000% right, Donovan. And that's what's very aggravating to a lot of us, who are trying to call out fraud for the sake of stopping crime and fraud and so forth. But moreover, the real legitimate needy people of Ohio, the true eligible Medicaid recipients, actually have their services cut. and there is less of the pie for them when it's being taken by people who should not be on it, because of for one reason or another, or of course those who are stealing from it and not providing any services but collecting those taxpayer dollars for doing so. That just takes, it's like proverbially taking food off of the table of a hungry family in order to feed somebody who's fat and happy over here. They're getting rich, and the people who really need Medicaid don't have it, or will have less of it.
Oh, 100%, 100%. That's the challenge we have right now. So, bills like 795, and, I'll also share this, for listeners who might be dialing in, trying to bring up the legislation, see where it's at. We're in what's called a mini lame duck. And so there is a flurry of activity happening prior to their scheduled summer recess at the end of the day today. And so we're watching and seeing where this legislation lands. Wherever it goes, right? Oftentimes you find these bills get bundled into other bills to move them through the process. We're kind of tracking where this all lands, but 795 is the vehicle. We had to shout out I think we had about 35 Ohioans who, again, took time off work, put a pause on their life to come to the State House and, applaud the efforts of Representative Davila, Representative Williams, and others who've been fighting for this reform. Because the issue here, right, has been the ones who want to maintain the status quo pack that committee room. The ones who want to maintain that status quo, keep their piece of the government pie, protect the fraud, waste, and abuse that exists within the system. Those folks have been hanging from the rafters, banging on the walls, doing what they do best, trying to protect their piece. We wanted to make sure that there was a counterbalance here to say, no. The working Ohioan who can't be here, right, appreciates the work that you folks are doing in the legislature to root out this fraud in the system and protect the program for those it's designed to serve.
I want to share something, if I can, real quick here, Donovan. These are just some pictures of some of the crew that like you said, that took off work, that came down there and spent their time. Let me see if I can pull this up. It's always a chess game here, or actually it's more of like a jigsaw puzzle to pull everything together here at the same time. So here is a post that you had made. AFP was proud to bring grassroots activists to the State House supporting HB 795 and demanding real Medicaid reform at the State House before summer recess. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a recognition to the folks there. There are a lot of true patriots there, Donovan. Who's the speaker standing on the
That's our grassroots director, Kyle Miller. I laugh because anytime we do an event or a rally, if he can stand on top of something, he tries to find a way to do it. But it makes a great visual, right? It makes a great visual.
It does indeed. And here are some of the individuals being interviewed and speaking out for, real, as you say, real Medicaid reform. So this is some of the press coverage there. And this is a great visual here too. The next one, this last one, that one. Tell us about all the signs.
Yeah, I mean, we're grassroots, right? And so these folks, they put these signs together. We wanted to empower them to deliver their message to the State House. You see the left do it all the time, right? Our friends on the progressive left, they bring folks out, they encircle the State House, or they get around the steps. Our folks are happy to go toe to toe with that as well, especially when it's for a cause like this, right? Making sure we're protecting the program for the people who need it, but also speaking up for the taxpayer. The sad thing about Medicaid, I've been talking to folks a lot about Medicaid lately, Bob. There is very little incentive out there to actually root this out. I think that's why we're seeing the challenges and roadblocks erupt the way they are, despite the coverage that this fraud has received here in Ohio. There's no incentive by the Department of Medicaid to do it unless the executive says, go root this out. And Lord knows the Dwight administration, Maureen Cochran, wasn't getting that done. The health insurance companies have no incentive because they're happy to get that money, Bob. More and more every year, they're going to say yes. The legislature can say how they want things to go, but if you don't have an executive, as we talked about, willing to get it done, nothing happens. There's no incentive for somebody who sees this fraud, waste, and abuse happening, because it's not like that money comes back into their pocket. It really truly takes good people doing the right thing to fix this problem. Because nobody gets more money, more wealth, more power by doing the right thing here. It's really just truly about doing the right thing for the taxpayer. And that's why we appreciate, folks like Mike Davila, up in your neck of the woods so much, because he's somebody who's called this out for a long time. He's been like a dog with a bone on this thing. And thank God we have people like him, because without him and others, handful of others, this would have been another scandal swept under the rug and just pushed to the side while the taxpayers pay more and more and more to the fraudsters and, the places where they exist.
Yeah. I interviewed Mike Davila like right after his first discovery, first kind of pulled the curtain back on the $6 billion, I think was at the time the number of dollars of Medicaid fraud. And he was just getting started there. And over the course of the last year and a half or whatever, we've learned so much more about this. And Josh Williams, who has quickly become one of my favorite members of the Ohio House as well. I have him on very regularly because he's always got another bill. He's got so many different irons in the fire in Columbus. He's really, honestly, out there making significant changes by pushing really important pieces of legislation. I had him on last week about 249, and now this one, I'm going to have to bring him back on here to talk about this one as well, because this is extraordinarily important. And Donovan, one of the, I was just looking at some of the language in your testimony about the substitute version of HB 795. And I don't know, we don't need to get too much into the weeds here about what it does when we say it protects. But when we see the expose by Nick Shirley in Minnesota and California, and also in Columbus, and then by Luke Rosiak, I think it is, from Daily Wire. And we see them knocking on these doors where there's nobody there and so forth, and yet they're receiving all of this money. We just wonder how that can happen, how it is that there's no system in place to verify that they're providing services to needy people of Ohio that they say they are. And I was just looking at some of the language. The electronic visit verification, EVV, requires GPS-enabled clock in and clock out for all in-home care services, mandating that each claim be supported by a validated EVV record as a condition of payment. How the hell is that? Sorry. How is that not already being done? How is that not? The idea that we have to have a new bill to say that we got to prove that people are actually working, like everybody else in the working public knows, you got to punch a time clock, for crying out loud. This is common sense, and it hasn't been being done.
Well, think about, I mentioned this in my testimony. I mentioned this during the question and answer session in my testimony. Where else in government do you just take people at their word, right? If the gas tax dollars we send to ODOT for roads, right? We see those roads get built. Those roads are, when they're put in by a contractor, the grade of the concrete asphalt, right, is tested by a government agent, right? We don't just take the contractor's word for it. Our education, our kids' education. If I want to take my kid out of a school and homeschool them, I have to give the superintendent a piece of paper to validate and assert that I'm going to educate my child. Everywhere else, almost in government, you have to have some level of verification. It's just common sense to have this electronic, especially when we're handing it to, family members to go and sit with other family members and, provide that home health care, which may or may not be necessary, right? But if we're going to have taxpayers paying for it, I believe there's got to be a higher level of scrutiny here just to make sure, right, we're getting the services that that these folks say that they're providing. It's a simple checkpoint to make sure that, we can find that fraud, waste, and abuse. And it doesn't take folks like Luke and others to, fly to Ohio and go expose us, the shame right in front of our face.
Yeah, exactly right, Donovan. I'm so glad you brought all of this up and brought this to the hearings. Provider enrollment reform, auditor of state authority, data and transparency, all of these things, a big part of structural reform of Medicaid in the state of Ohio, HB 795. So who do we need to contact, Donovan? I'm always about action items. Who do we contact? Who can the people who are watching and listening right now reach out to in support of this?
Well, we need your representative, right? This is something that'll end up on the floor of the House. And so right now, what I would say is go to ohiohouse.gov. From there, you can look up who your state representative is, give them a call, say, Representative Davila, whomever your representative might be, right? Please vote in support of House Bill 795 bring it to the vote, bring it to the floor, get the vote done. We've got about less than 24 hours to get this done, and they need to hear from all the constituents they can hear from.
That's what I wanted to know, because it's extraordinarily important that we are indeed active in this, and they will only act. You know, I don't know if you know the numbers. Somebody told me once, every call that a legislator, like, you know, one of our state house members gets is representative of, you know, 100 people that feel the same way but did not call, or something to that effect. So people think, well, what can my little voice do? My phone call, my email to my legislator or whatever. It's just one voice. It's not, because they know there are a whole lot of people who feel the same way. And don't they kind of track it that way as well?
Oh, absolutely. Each office does a little different, but you know, you can talk to your state representative and they'll tell you if we get more than 5 calls in a day on a particular bill or a particular issue, we know something's buzzing in the district. And so they pay attention and they keep score on bills like this too. Big issues like this, the other side is mobilized. They are making calls, they're sending emails. That is being tallied. And when you're going, you know, we don't need to match them toe to toe, but we need to make sure that we put enough points on the board in that regard, letting your representative know we've got their back when they vote in support of good governance like House Bill 795, because otherwise they're just feeling the pressure from the other side, and they're representatives at the end of the day. They gotta, you know, there is a element of representing the voices you're hearing from your district. We need to make sure they're hearing our voice as well.
Amen to that. Last thing, real quick, Donovan, let's hit it again. June 22nd, next Monday, not this coming Monday, but the following Monday, the 22nd, we are going to be in Columbus, and we're going to be celebrating America's 250th birthday. We're going to be celebrating one small step in the roles that have been taken to bring us where we are, and the one small step that we can all take in order to make sure that we continue to protect, preserve, and grow this republic and our liberties. As you can see here, it's in Columbus at the Columbus Crew Stadium, the new stadium there. It's going to be an event center inside from 5 to 10. The hours listed there, Donovan, say 5 to 10, but people are going to be on the road back probably by 8:30 or so, right? It's not going to be an event where they're going to be leaving at 10 o'clock and home at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, the event program will end at about 8. The scheduled program will end at 8:30. We'll have the space a little later, so anybody who wants to stick around, if you're in Central Ohio, you're welcome to. But for these buses, we're going to get you folks back home so you can get back at a reasonable hour. We're just thrilled to be able to have folks join us for this event, and it's going to be a celebration. And one thing I noticed too, there aren't that many America 250 events. I'm sad to say it. I've been looking around here and there. There's occasional ones, but there's not been like a big Ohio America 250 event. I'm excited to say looks like we're the ones hosting that, and nothing better to celebrate this time of year than the greatest nation on earth.
That's really very important observation, and I did not know that. For some reason, I saw this as being one of this massive celebration that is happening here. The fact that, you know, I was only 10, but I do remember the bicentennial celebrations in 1976. But God, I just aged myself. But I kind of thought this was going to be like that. I mean, you know, it's 250 years. So, and I know nationally, federally, President Trump, they're doing everything they can to have massive blowout events and so on and so forth. But here in Ohio, this might be one of our only chances to come together and to really, truly recognize, give thanks for, and celebrate that which we have and have earned over the course of 2.5 centuries, for crying out loud. So that's another reason. I'm glad you brought it up. There aren't a lot of these types of events. So if we've got an opportunity to register for one and be at one, I hope people take advantage of that. Last word, Donovan.
Yeah, just can't wait to have you folks here. Look forward to seeing you in person, Bob, here in a couple weeks, and just keep up the fight.
Get on the bus. We're leaving Strongsville at 3 o'clock. I'll give you the details on where in Strongsville it'll be to get on our bus, but you got to register first. Like I said before, get on that link right there. And if you don't see that link on my social media pages, this is a graphic there to click to reserve your spot on the bus and for the event. Just send me an email and I will send you that link directly. bob@strictlyspeaking.org, bob@strictlyspeaking.org. Donovan O'Neill, the state director of AFP Ohio. Always appreciate you. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. We'll see you, Bob.
All right, there you go. That's Donovan, and that takes us to almost 9 o'clock. But I do see a few minutes here left, which means I can dive into the comments for a couple and see what the folks have had to say. During the playback of the John Lott interview, I took an opportunity to get into the chat a little bit there myself. And so I want to say thank you to every chatter there who is a part of this thing, and whether they're responding to what we're talking about on the show at that time, or whether they're talking about some of the other current events that we have referenced. I love the engagement. This is what I want to ask you to do, by the way. I'm asking you to engage as always. Please, if you are watching during the live stream, be a part of the chat. If you are watching on playback, get into the comment section and leave your thoughts on the Karmelo Anthony verdict, on the Karmelo Anthony sentencing, on the issue of race and whether or not it played a role in anything that happened in that case, both all the way from the crime itself, through the process, through the fundraising, through the the actual guilt trial, the jury verdict, and so forth. Give me your thoughts and engage in conversation, because again, trying to grow this program and grow this mission that we're on, it involves getting the algorithms involved. And that means we need activity, okay? We need activity. It rewards activity in terms of likes, so click that thumbs up button. In terms of follows, so click that notification button, the bell. And in terms of commentary and shares. So please, 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 engagement matters when it comes to trying to grow a program like this. By the way, speaking of being actively involved, if you're not getting my Sunday briefing, which is completely free in the form of my newsletter every Sunday at 6 a.m., please get out your phone right now. If you're watching this on a computer screen, use your phone and take a quick scan of that QR code. It'll take you to the sign up page, the subscription page to subscribe to Strictly Speaking This Week. That is my Sunday morning briefing. I will give you 5 things you need to know before the day starts on Monday, the new week starts, and some of the things that you have to do as well. 5 things to know and 5 things to do, as well as exclusive commentary that I only offer on that platform. So make sure you are subscribing to the Sunday morning briefing. All right. Let me check out the chat now and see what I may have missed here, because I know there are a lot of topics that we have discussed today that got a lot of interest here. Big Jake, I would like to say those women are stupid, but they make bad choices. Maybe they're stupid because they make bad choices. And I think I know what he is talking about. And we were talking about some of the women with respect to the SPLC. I'm guessing the SPLC showdown in the House Judiciary Committee with President Brian Fair being cornered on the abortion question, cornered on our pro-lifers, white supremacists. And all he could say is about every woman deserves to be able to make her own choice. So I'm going to assume that is what this was about. With the race question, Sherry says, I've always believed the Obama reign opened the floodgates for enhanced racism. I completely concur and said so. There's no doubt in my mind that when Barack Obama, very early on in his first administration in 2009, declared the police to be stupid for daring to investigate what was reported as a home break-in that turned out to be a Harvard professor, a black man trying to get into his house because he lost his keys or something. And they declared this police shouldn't have responded to that. When he did that, and then when he declared that Trayvon Martin could have looked like just, his own son if he had a son, that's what set the racial flames, set it on fire and got the flames really going. And ever since then, I think we had been on a path to much smoother race relations until Barack Obama was elected, a black man elected by majority white voters, by the way. It launched more racism than we have seen since probably the Civil Rights Act, since the 60s. Let's see. What else do we have here? Jimbo. Oh, this is me responding to Jimbo. Where did Jimbo's comment go? Sorry about that. I'm trying to navigate this, like I said, in real time. Here's Jimbo. Was this country improving in race relations? I think it was. Then it was Obama or Islam that set it back. Both are bad for it. But now I think Islam has inflamed race hatred against whites. That is all very, very true. Politically incorrect mechanic. Okay, he's just responding to Sherry. Jim from Parma Heights. Fonnie Willis, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, even Obama, all puppets for the wealthy benefactors of the Democrat Party. And yes, they are all the faces of this, claims of racism and so forth. Let's see. To the Karmelo verdict, Agree. Sudden passion is a first-degree offense. Karmelo took a knife to the event and throws water on the sudden passion argument. Yes, 100% premeditated when you bring that knife and then go goading somebody to do something, daring them, saying, touch me and see what happens. He's got his hand on a knife that he intends to use. That is premeditation. And that's why it should have been 99 instead of 35 years. This should have been a hate crime, says the politically incorrect mechanic. Yeah. Probably. But you and I both know, we all know, hate crimes cannot be committed by racial minorities. I'm saying that facetiously, but it's the way it's treated in the courts. Prosecutors don't bring hate charges, hate crimes against racial minorities. Almost hardly ever, even if that's what this was. I think jurors were extra careful in their decision because of how the jury pool looked. They had 598 jurors in that jury pool originally. Some said they could not convict a black man. That's right. Some of the jurors, black jurors, said they would have a hard time ever trying to put a black man in jail. That's why they were excluded from the jury. And then they started screaming after the jury verdict that this was not fair because it was an all-white jury. Well, when you have literally black people from Frisco outside protesting, saying that Karmelo should be freed and that they would never have, that's one of the reasons why. All it takes is one juror, one activist juror to hang a jury. And a hung jury means he goes free unless the state chooses to refile charges. The propaganda is that blacks fear white violence, the exact opposite of the reality. I've seen a dozen stories of reality in the last week, zero supporting the propaganda. I actually wrote this, like I said, during the break. I wrote this in response, not the break, I should say, but during the playback of the John R. Lott interview. I wrote this back, and I remember this very well. Jesse Jackson, an interview that he did, or a speech that he was giving, and he talked about how he was walking along a dark street alone in New York at night, and he heard somebody coming up behind him, and he turned around terrified and was relieved when he saw what? It was a white person. He was terrified he was about to get got by a black criminal. This was Jesse Jackson. Okay? Think about that. And that's real. You can find that, by the way. That's not something I'm making up. You can look it up for yourself. What school was Karmelo with, and what track event was he in, or was he just a bystander? I haven't heard any of this. He was a track athlete as well. I don't know if he was running in that event or that day or not, but he was in the stadium because his school was involved, and obviously he went into the opposing school's track tent and created all of that havoc. The liberal left is so pee-pants scared of the violent leftists they will never check them on it. It's up to law and those who support law and order. Basically, it's up to MAGA. In many ways, it is. In many ways, it is. Preacher's wife. Stereotypes are there for reasons. Crime statistics prove it is not about race. It's about what is actually happening. I'm sorry, but I'm tired of being told that I'm the bad person for feeling this way. Preacher's wife, you are not the only one. You are not the only one. Bob just said 6% minority commit 50% of the borders. No, not borders, 50% of the murders. Yes, 50% of the murders. And I said 6% instead of 13% because black women typically are not included in that. They say that, just from straight race, 13% of the population is black, but they're responsible for 50% of the murders. But narrow that 13% of the black population down to the overwhelming majority of them committing the murders are black males, not females. And the majority of them are younger, between the ages of like 14 and 25. So it's probably smaller than 6% committing that 50+% of the murders in this country, statistically proven. All right, there's a lot of really great stuff in here that I just don't have much more time to give. But really, really, what is Sherry saying? Yes, that was the moment, Bob. Are we talking about the Jesse Jackson moment? I'm not sure which element, but thank you for the affirmation on that, Sherry. But that is going to do it because we are out of time. It's already 6 minutes past the hour. Thank you to everybody. Let me vibe our way out of here. Dr. John R. Lott for coming on last night and recording with me so that we could play that back. I didn't want to get him up at 4:30 in the morning and make him do this morning. So thanks to him. Thanks to you for watching and listening and being a part of Strictly Speaking this week. Please don't forget, activity and engagement is what I need. That's what it's all about. If I get activity and engagement, we'll get more people knowing that we are here. And when people know we're here, we tend to keep them, because what we're doing is good work and very informative work and very influential work. And that's what it's all about. So please stay engaged, give some likes, give some notifications. And if you know anybody that is interested in truly understanding the news at a level that is not bastardized by the propaganda media, you tell them to come right here to Strictly Speaking Unfiltered. Don't forget the weekly Sunday briefing, Sunday mornings at 6 o'clock by way of the newsletter. All right, make sure you scan that. I'll leave it up here as we fade out this morning. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.